Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second in a series of webinars called Unlocking Animal Data. Today, we're really excited to present a webinar focused on all things foster, mobilizing foster care. We're looking to unlock the power of community-based support. As we know, fosters play a critical role in everything we do in animal sheltering. They allow, obviously, foster-based rescues to help more pets. They alleviate space constraints for overcrowded shelters, especially in the summer. And as you'll hear from our panelists today, they also play a critical role in natural disaster relief, getting pets breaks from the shelters so we can learn more about them, and increasing adoptions. So we're really excited to get to our speakers. We have a lot to cover today, and I'll kick it over to Tori.
Thank you all so much, and thank you for being here today. If you are just joining us, feel free to put who you're with and like which organization that you're with, and so we can say hi to everybody in the chat. Just some housekeeping things before we get started. Your cameras are off, your microphones are all off, but if you have any questions, you can put those in the Q&A. And you can also type them in the chat and we'll do our best to get to them, as we will not be leaving any time at the end for questions. So feel free to put those in the chat. And we do have a very, very great lineup today. I'm really excited about it. We're going to do some deep dive into a lot of really great analysis and information on fostering and hear from some incredible speakers. And before we get started, I really want to thank Hill's Pet Nutrition for the sponsorship of our Unlocking Animal Data series. We are on our second webinar in this series, and we just released our second blog as part of the series this morning on some foster analysis. I'll put that link in the chat here shortly, but we're going to hear from Hills in a minute. But before we get started, I just wanted to give everybody some brief information. If you're not familiar with Shelter Animals Count, your data matters. We would love for you to be a part of our data analysis. If you're an organization that collects and analyzes data of the pets that are in your shelter, we would love for you to be a part of the national story, where we're getting ready to start looking at our mid-year analysis. So we would love to have everybody's data for the first 6 months of the year before we get ready to put that report out later on this year. And we do have a lot of analysis that's publicly available. You can see the trends from over 14,000 organizations, shelters, rescues, animal sheltering organizations across the country. Those are public dashboards that are available, and we're always improving those, always, looking at ways to advance that data so that it's publicly available. We also have some state level analysis that is currently on our website too, so you can look at what the trends are in your state, and how it maybe compares to other states around you and across the country. We also have member exclusive dashboards that are available for all of our organizations that provide data to us. You can look at org type comparisons, some forecasting data as we're heading into the last part of June. You're probably wondering what's going to happen for the rest of the year. We do have some forecasting dashboards that are on your portal that you can access at any time. And then another feature that we have is that you can embed dashboards on your website that feature your data that you provide to Shelter Animals Count. So if you're looking at ways that you can talk about your gross intakes by month, what your year is looking like, but you don't have to enter that data manually. We do have embeddable dashboards that you can now put on your website for your intakes and outcomes, as well as community services. If you're an organization that does provide data for your community services, such as collars and leashes, tags, food, veterinary resources that you're providing to the community, you can enter that data on our community services dashboard, and we can embed that as well on your website. If you're interested in that, I'll put the email that you reach out to, but basically it's info@shelteranimalscount.org. You can reach out to us and we'll get you that code for your website. We also have APIs for shelter management software. So if you're tired of manually entering your data every month and you would like that to be an automatic process, the following shelter management softwares all provide those automatic data transmissions. We can again help you get that set up, so then your data automatically comes out and comes to us, and you no longer have to do that manually. And lastly, towards the beginning of the year, we released our Data Basics workbook that is powered by Hill's Pet Nutrition. This is a great resource if you are interested in really doing deep dives into the data, perhaps if you have staff that's new to animal welfare, new to data collection, and needs to understand the value of data and why it's important to not only the work of your organization, but on a national level, this is a great resource to provide to them. It has a lot of tools and tips and tricks on data standardization, as well as an animal welfare glossary that goes over the key terms of our industry. And that is available on our website as well. And again, I'll put a link in the chat momentarily. Before we get to our panelists today, I want to just provide a little bit of analysis that shows where we're looking at in terms of foster counts. So this graph is showing ending counts of dogs in foster by month, and this is showing from January 2023 through December of last year. And when we look at this, it does tell us some pretty interesting information here that it shows that government organizations are starting to increase their foster counts, while we're looking at private shelters are staying pretty level, but the foster-based rescue numbers continue to go down. And this data just really helps us be able to understand what's happening on a national level. And there's, a lot of the why factors that could go into this, but we are seeing the trends start to increase for government organizations. We're hearing that these orgs are at capacity all the time. Fostering is critically important to these organizations. And we're seeing that really showing in the data that they're asking for support from their community. And then we are in the midst of kitten season. Today's webinar is really going to be focused a lot on dogs, but we are going to, talk about cats a little bit. But this we wanted to kind of highlight. We talked about this in our last webinar with Hannah Shaw, and I saw Hannah's here. Hello. And this really is just showing when kittens are coming into our organizations. And we always know that May is really when the kitten season ramps up. And when we break it out and look at our 2024 data by age group, those kittens that are under 8 weeks old peak in May. And then it starts to go down for the rest of the year. Of course, there's some, surges all along throughout the summer. But when we look at the next age category from 8 weeks to 5 months, that's whenever we see some really interesting data because we start to see that surge in June and July. This data does help us prepare for those older kittens that are going to be coming into our shelters that were, born in the spring. They're starting to come in a little bit older, and this does help with, resource allocation, preparing for staffing, foster needs, all of that. And then adults and seniors really just remain steady throughout the year, relatively steady. And now I want to turn it over to Courtney with Hills Pet Nutrition to go over some exciting data that they have on their end.
Thank you, Tori, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to share a little bit of our data. What you're seeing on the screen right now is last year's State of Shelter Pet Adoption Report. We were just putting the finishing touches on the 2025 data, so I'm going to share just 3 quick kind of key insights from this year's report, and also mention, I think Tori just mentioned Hannah's here. We also in this year's report have some really interesting case studies and insights from Hannah on overall fostering as well. So we hope you'll check it out in about a month. It should be available on our website. So if you want to go to the next slide, when we kind of look holistically at fostering, our report dug into lots of different barriers across kind of the pet ownership spectrum. But when we think about fostering both as a pathway to help animals within the sheltering organizations, but also potentially to pet ownership, we kind of have seen several trends that continue to be what we would consider somewhat problematic, both across awareness and participation. So similar to what Tori was sharing. So the first, only 1 in 10 people who responded to our study, this is a year-over-year study of more than 2,000 consumers or potential pet owners or pet owners, only 1 in 10 of them have fostered. And so this is, I think, just symptomatic of kind of the environment that we're in. A lot of it, and you'll see this in our deeper dive in the report, lies around awareness, but also just misperceptions around fostering. So we want to go to the next slide. Again, when we kind of started digging and asking questions of the same population around interest level, Nearly 70% of those respondents said that they are interested in fostering, but then less than half of them said they actually knew how to get started. So that could be anything from I'm not sure, how to find an organization that needs fosters, a little overwhelmed by the process, afraid of the unknowns that potentially could kind of present itself during fostering. So again, just kind of points to this gap. It's not that there's not interest, there's really this gap in awareness that is leading to a barrier to kind of taking that next step. But if you want to go to the next slide, and I always think this is kind of interesting. There's a lot of other data here, but when we ask people their number one reason why they would not consider fostering, almost half of them continue to kind of talk about, I'm afraid I'm going to get too attached. And I think the reason why it's problematic, because it's also, I think, what we're seeing from a broader pet ownership perspective. People are afraid they're going to get attached, they're going to fall in love with this pet, keep it, and then that opens up all the other barriers. So cost of care, access to care, can I house it? So all of these other kind of persistent barriers. So it's all very interconnected. But there's a lot of additional analysis in the upcoming report that we hope is helpful as you're thinking about your foster programs, and in particular, ways to bring people in to fostering by using some of the insights here and that Shelter Animals Count provides to help kind of overcome, some of these fears or perceptions that aren't necessarily correct. One of the other insights, the second behind fear of attachment, was the fact that they thought that they had to pay or assume all of the financial responsibility around fostering, which in most cases, obviously your organizations are doing a lot of the heavy lifting to make that financially very seamless for a foster, but there's this disconnect in them just not fully understanding what resources are available and how easy it can be. So with that, I just have two other quick slides. We are in the midst of recruitment for Clear the Shelters. So my team would not have let me come in and say a couple of words without asking if you have not already considered signing up to participate in this year's Clear the Shelters. There's still plenty of time. You can visit cleartheshelters.com. On the right side of the page, there's a very quick form, and you can participate either in the adoption campaign. There's also a fundraising portion as well. So if you only wanted to participate in the fundraising, we provide a matching give during the entire month of August with Greater Good Charities. So we'd love to have you participate in that campaign as well. And I think with that, Tori, I turn it back over to you. There's just these are all the reasons to participate, but I don't think we need to belabor that. There's too much good fostering data that we want to get to today. So
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Courtney. We're so excited to see this year's data in the State of the Shelter report. So thank you so much. All right, next up, I am very excited to learn about the Dog Day Out program at Arizona Humane Society. So whenever we were talking about like who's got some really innovative programs, and Arizona Humane Society just kept coming up in conversation. And the thing that I think is like really, really fascinating, and you guys can go ahead and pull your screen up if you guys want to. So we have Ashley and Audrey here, and they just launched this program really last year and are seeing such tremendous success with it. So I'm going to kick it over to them to introduce themselves and give us a lot of insight into what they're doing to get dogs out of the shelter.
Thank you so much. We're very, very excited to be here. I'm Audrey. I'm the Senior Manager of Animal Care and Experience Behavior and Pet Training here at the Arizona Humane Society.
And I'm Ashley Global, the Manager of Volunteer Engagement.
So we're going to go a little bit through how we started this program and the different changes that we've made along the way and the data that we have tracked while we're doing this, and how we really are measuring that we're achieving the goals that we've set for our program here. As we go through our presentation, all of the photos in here are from our volunteers that have taken dogs out on field trips, so we hope you enjoy them.
So Audrey and I, with Arizona Humane Society, attended a Dog Day Out seminar with VCA Charities, and we came back to the Arizona here, and we wanted to set some goals for our program and what we plan to achieve with this program. So number one, we wanted to reduce the length of stay, LOS, for shelter dogs, especially the long-time dogs. We also have a pretty extensive enrichment program, and we follow the standards of care for national shelter guidelines. We're tiered enrichment, and we wanted to make sure that we were reaching our goals with that, add a little more enrichment for the pets that are in our care. Since the Arizona Humane Society takes in all the sick, injured, and abused and stray animals in our community, we wanted to use the field trip program to learn more about each of the dogs' behavior and particularly how they are outside of the shelter environment. We all know that dogs are very different in the kennels than they are outside of them, obviously. So from a volunteer perspective, we wanted to set a goal to provide a low commitment volunteer option where pet lovers can be engaged without having to go through extensive training or jump through a lot of hoops. And lastly, one of our goals was to ask these volunteers to share their field trip photos on their social pages and platforms, and really help us to expand our reach on social media, get our dogs seen in the community, and hopefully find them new homes.
So once we determined what our goals were going to be for our program, we had to set some parameters of who in the shelter would be able to participate. So starting out, we landed on dogs that have been in our shelter for 15 days or longer. And for the human participants, individuals who are 21 years or older would have to be the one that signed up for the field trip. They are more than welcome to bring friends or family along, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are responsible for the dog, who will be doing the handling of the dog and are signing the waiver. We also determined that we were going to have all of these shifts as self-scheduled appointments in advance, like a typical volunteer shift. We weren't going to do drop-ins or anything like that. That felt challenging for us to manage with our bandwidth and our resources. And we also decided that because we do want to focus on the enrichment and the long timers, we were just going to match people with dogs. So they did not get to come in and pick their dog. We would look at our list, see what dogs needed to go out the most, and we would match them with the individuals that signed up for the program. So once we knew who was going to participate and what we were trying to accomplish, we did a quick inventory check of the technology that we thought we needed and what we were already using in the shelter. So to manage all of the people that were signing up, so all of our volunteers, we were going to use our typical volunteer software, which we use Volunteer Hub. We were going to have them pre-sign up on those waivers in that platform as well. We also figured we need a way to keep track of all the animals that we've identified that are going to participate in this program. So we decided we would just start with a Google Sheet, just keep it really simple. We use Google Sheets for other things in the shelter, so we started out with that. And then for getting the information back from the volunteers, we wanted something very easy. So we use JotForm. JotForm is just like an online form and survey platform that we use for a lot of our volunteer surveys and other internal data collection measures. So we decided our report card would live in there as well.
So we this is a quick look at our Volunteer Hub landing page. So when a volunteer goes to our website, azhumane.org, and clicks on that they want to volunteer, initially when we first started this program, we just slipped in the dog field trip volunteer as an option. You'll see it right there, the requirement to be 21, and they could select this as an option when they create their volunteer profile. They would sign their waiver through Volunteer Hub, and then our team would screen their each application to make sure that they're at least 21 years old.
For our Google Sheet starting out, we were manually entering all the information here. So we landed on doing field trips on Saturdays and Sundays at one location. So on Friday, Ash and I would be going through the kennels, finding all of the animals that met our criteria for field trips, and we would log them all into the spreadsheet. So their animal ID number, their name, their location. We also would pull what their intake date was and what date they were first made available. For all of our data in this program, we decided to go with days available because our shelter does do a lot of heavy medical treatment. We also do a lot of cruelty investigations and have confiscate holds on animals. So we wanted to make sure we're really comparing time that they could have left the shelter with an adopter pre and post field trip. So we were pulling that. And then once they went on the field trip, our team was logging the information about the volunteer that took them and what they did.
This is a quick look at our report card, again, through JotForm. We created this. JotForm is very simple and easy to use. You can set it up so that submissions are automatically sent to certain emails. And in our case, to try to automate, initially when we first started, we had this set up for the adoptions team to receive. They would be in charge of updating the pet's web notes with new personality traits that we've learned. The volunteer engagement team would receive a copy of each submission, and then from there add photos to the pet's web page. Our behavior team also received an auto submission, so they could review and see if there is any like counseling that needed to be done for adoption, potential adopters, or if there was anything that we could do to better prepare the dog for their next field trip, like helping them get used to jumping into the car or whatnot. And then our animal care and experience team would also receive a copy just to log notes and enter the data into the spreadsheet. So after piloting these, we got everything technology-wise set up. We were ready for our pilot. We initially launched on January of 2024. Within the first month, again, just with listing it as an option on our application, no marketing promotion, we had 376 volunteers sign up. It was a huge influx of interest right off the bat. That time we were sending out about 20 dogs every weekend, again, Saturdays and Sundays, 10 dogs per day. But because the prepping for the field trips was kind of a labor-intensive task for Audrey and I, basically at this point when we first launched, staff was facilitating this program because there was so much manual labor involved to get it going every weekend.
So now we're up and running, and we really hit some growing pains. So very quickly, we had thousands of applications for this program, and we were having a really hard time keeping up to make sure that everyone who wants this experience was getting it. Ash would post the shifts weekly, and they would fill literally within minutes. And then people would be emailing like, I wanted to sign up and I didn't get to. And so we decided, well, we need to really get some more spots. So we expanded this to a second location, and we doubled up the releases at each release time. So we were sending out 2 dogs at a time with different people. So just kind of coordinating that. This is where the Google Sheet became really hard, and there were some mistakes starting to be made. So we're still manually logging everything. We do have 3 different locations, and so we would make this list on Friday, and because we're sending out so many animals, the team is just cranking through the list, sending these dogs out. Well, sometimes there would be a dog that maybe on Friday was available, but by Sunday morning, they were on a hold. Maybe the medical team wanted to check one more thing with them. And so then they're on a hold and they got sent out, and the person's trying to market them for people to adopt them. And the dog is actually not on our website right now as available, or they got moved to a different location. So the team is looking for a dog and they're actually at a different building. We didn't work on all the days that the field trips were. And so we were kind of having a little bit of a breakdown there. Also, just because we're manually entering things, just data entry errors of an A number or a name being spelled a little bit off was challenging. And we didn't have all of our handling notes on this Google Sheet. We were trying to pull as much information as we could realistically quickly. But there would be times that maybe a family showed up and the staff member walked them to the kennel to get the dog, and then they realized, oh, this dog actually is supposed to go home with children 10 plus, they're really jumpy, and the person has 2 toddlers with them. So then they need to find them a different dog. So it just could be kind of a clunky experience for the customer and for our staff and for the dogs too. So these were the issues that we started running into, and it also made it hard for us to train our shelter volunteers to help the field trip volunteers and release these dogs, because they weren't able to get in Chameleon, which is our kennel management software, and kind of cross-reference everything that they needed to make sure that the right matches were made. So that's when we go into phase 2. So we decided we need to streamline some of this, and we created a postmaster. So I'm sure most of the shelter management softwares have this capability where you can kind of pull a report and it will get auto emailed to you. So the postmaster that we created included the information we had on the Google Sheet. So we just were looking for dogs that are available with no holds, that have been in the shelter for 2 weeks and can have out of kennel time. And then we also added, what are the handling notes? So whoever's going to pull that dog is prepared that maybe they are kind of jumpy and you want to bring a schmear with you, or maybe they are a little bit fearful and it's easier to get their harness on when you get them out of the kennel. We also added our web note, which would include whatever our adoption requirements were. So if they do need to have like an age restriction or something like that. So then whoever was running the field trips for that day had all this information just in their email. They could print this list and go. We also realized that we had been missing a lot of animals when we started this postmaster, just manually trying to do it. So that helped to make sure that pets weren't getting overlooked. And it made the Google Sheet, we call it Google Sheet 2.0, because it was a lot quicker, because this was just a table that we would paste into our Google Sheet. Then we could still log the participant information, but again, it was not the manual, like logging every name and A number in there.
We also, initially when we launched this field trip program, we were seeing which volunteers actually showed up to pick up a dog, and then we would be emailing them the link to their report card. It was a very clunky process. It had to be done by staff. So we created a quick QR code on a laminated sheet. We popped that into each of the field trip gear bags. So when the volunteer comes back with the dog after the field trip, they just pull that out of the bag, scan it, send us all of their cute photos and tell us what they learned about the dog. And then again, all of that gets automatically sent to the correct and involved teams. All of these improvements with the Google Sheet, the postmaster, and the QR codes allowed us to then engage our trained in-shelter volunteers to help us facilitate this program from start to finish without needing a ton of support. And that was great news because word was getting out. A lot of people wanted to get involved and take a dog out, and we were able to do even more dogs and send even more pets out. Plus, this was also very helpful because a lot of other shelters were reaching out, interested in a dog field trip program, and they wanted some data on all of that. And we had to, at that time, manually calculate data, days in shelters, days until they're adopted, how many dogs, how many volunteers, who did what on what field trips. And we had to do that all manually in the Google Sheet, which was pretty intensive.
Then we move into phase 3, and these were the issues that we were looking to solve for. So we were wanting real-time data, and so that we could easily provide anyone reaching out with accurate, up-to-date information. So we decided to move all of our field trip tracking into Chameleon. We wanted to just kind of minimize the amount of math and calculation of trying to figure out, well, what was the first field trip? And yeah, that intake date to that outcome date and the date of their field trip and all of that, because most of our information is already in our kennel management software. We just decided we're going to find a way to log our field trips in there as well. And then as we started working on that, we thought, well, our field trips are really a promotional activity for our pets. That's how we look at it. It's enrichment for them. So that's really wonderful. It also is a great way to get them in front of a lot of people. And there's other teams in the organization who are also making those efforts. So our marketing team is posting them on social media, our community team who is taking them out to events, or even our animal care team who will take dogs out in the lobby and have them engage with adopters. And so we wanted to really look at all of these different ways that we're networking our animals and track it in one spot so we can all see the efforts that people are making and make sure that there's not one animal who, like all of us, are putting a ton of effort into marketing. Meanwhile, this other animal who's been here almost the same amount of time has had like maybe one social post, but never done any of the other things. So that was a big goal for us, and us really thinking big on like, let's get all this info in the same place. So this is our current selection report. So once we found a spot where we were going to track all of this, and labor-wise, it definitely is the same, if not less than the Google Sheet, honestly. We were able to revise our postmaster that runs and add some information. So this has like their basic information still. We added the days that they've been available at each of our 3 campuses because we will move pets between locations as well. If they've been somewhere for a while and they haven't been adopted, we find that they might have better luck at a different building that we have. We log all of the different activities that they've completed and the details of those, their handling notes, so that person is equipped to go get them out of the kennel. And this is where we do log the harness size, which saves a lot of time for our team. And then any disclosures that they have, so med disclosures or behavior disclosures as well. So this was our new report that we were going to run with. And by getting all of that information into one place, we were able to have that now pull into our dashboard as an organization. We use iDashboards. I know different organizations use different platforms. So whatever your platform is, if it can talk to your kennel management software, this can be a great solution to just have all of that in real time. So we do track the number of activities that we are doing by month and the distinct animal count. This was the number that was always it took me a minute to pull when I was pulling data for organizations. We keep an average total running of how many field trips we're doing per animal, what people are choosing to do on their field trips. So these are the options that we have on that report card. And then this is really the big benchmark for us to determine if our program is winning or not, because we do really want to focus on length of stay and getting our large dogs out of the shelter. We look at those days available pre the very first field trip and post that first field trip. So as you can see, it is a significant difference. In this month of June so far, our average is almost 20 days that they were available before that first field trip. And then after that first one, they were adopted within 5, which is pretty cool.
So big picture, what are the results from our field trip program and what have we learned about the dogs and the people who've participated? Well, since launching back in January 2024, we've sent out 782 dogs on 1,822 field trips. And 21% of the dogs are adopted within 48 hours of their first field trip.
On average, the dogs are going on 2.5 field trips. So it's definitely mixed. Some dogs are going to get adopted right after that first one. There are dogs that we send out on a field trip and the volunteer comes back with them and they're like, hey, there's a family following me back that really want to meet this dog back here at the shelter. So it's kind of going to be varied. You might have some dogs you send on 5 field trips before they get adopted, but that average is 2.5 for us. And then we do see a really significant decrease in days available pre versus post field trip.
So we know that field trips work, but some things that you can't track are extremely helpful and impactful. So we wanted to share some of this data as well.
The calmer kennel presence, this is a big one. So this is a report from our staff, our volunteers, our customers that come in that do comment on how calm a lot of these dogs look after their field trip. Again, we're sending dogs who have been out in the shelter 15 days, 30 days, 40 days maybe. And so there is a component of stress there, and just getting out for those couple hours and having a really engaging activity and a really fun time helps them to come back and look so serene in their kennel, which is a wonderful look for adopters who are trying to find a dog for their family.
We also just learned so much about these dogs during their field trips. Like I mentioned before, they're very different. The field trip volunteers even say, this is not the same dog that I saw in the kennel this morning, because they just are so relaxed and calm out of the kennel environment. So we learn a lot about what they like and their dislikes, and we can really beef up their kennel web notes to make them more detailed for people who are looking for a new pet. And of course, those photos are super compelling. Those pictures with a person and how happy they look, it just really helps to attract adopters on our website. So based on the data, we can help guide volunteers on what activities work best for their field trips now that we have this info. So right now we're sitting about 3,500 people who have signed up to participate in a field trip. Not all have gotten to participate in a field trip, but it just goes to show how popular field trip program is. And because we have the data to kind of back it up, they might show up for their shift to pick up a dog and say, well, I plan to just take it home for a few hours and let them hang out. Well, that's great, but our data shows that if you take them to some place public with their Adopt Me vest, they're more likely to get adopted, and that's the goal of this program. So we can kind of encourage them to do certain activities with these dogs during their field trip and get them into a home. And then we do send out a post-survey, post-field trip survey just to see how their volunteer experience was. You can see, and we ask, like, do you feel like your time was well spent? Did you feel supported? Were the rules clearly communicated to you? And as you can see, we get high ratings every time. We feel very lucky that they have a great volunteer experience. We work really hard to make sure they do. And as a result, we get a lot of people that want to sign up for a field trip again and come back. And I think that's just a reflection of the positive experience that we're providing for them. We also have an open-ended field at the end of the survey that we send out to them. Again, that's through jot form. But how was your experience? And here's some of the reviews. As you can see, people just have great things to say about the program. The one in the middle, I wanted to point out, they're more Adopt Me cards. She's referring to the little business cards that we put into the dog's gear bag, and they have an opportunity to meet someone who might be interested in adopting. They can write the pet's name and ID number on that card, so the person has the info when they get back to the shelter to get to meet that pet and take them home. So that's what she's referring to there. But as you can see, people just feel very invested in these animals. It's an easy way for people to get involved. They feel like they're part of our team, that they're making an impact. And what these comments are even more amazing, as Audrey mentioned, is that the volunteers don't get to pick their dogs. We're matching them with a dog. And so they never really get to choose. They don't know who they're going to be taking out that morning. We just go down the list. And I think that's worth mentioning because we do get asked, like, can I pick my own pet? And it's like, no. And there are some people that we take them back to the kennel to get their dog. They're hesitant, maybe it's a breed that they've never interacted with before. I have a quick story. Mom and a dad and their two younger kids came into the shelter for a field trip, and I took them back. They're like, we don't want a pit bull. And I was like, okay, well, we'll just see what's next on the list. Took them right back to the kennel with a pit bull mix, and they're like, the mom was very hesitant at first, and I was like, she's great, she's been on field trips before, you're gonna have a good time. Load her up in the car. They come back after their field trip. The kids are crying because they want to adopt the dog. The mom's crying because she wants to adopt the dog. And the husband's like, I told you we're not adopting another dog. But it just goes to show you that that family probably would have never had an experience with a pit bull before, and they had a great one. And it was because we were able to offer that opportunity for them.
So starting a program like this can feel like a lot, and we just want to remind everyone it's okay to start out really small, like with whatever works for you, whatever your resources are, and you can grow your program based on your community and just the natural trajectory of whatever you start. Our program's grown a lot in the last year. We're about to move into our phase 4, where we're going to start doing overnight sleepovers in the same model that we're doing our field trips. So we're super excited about that. And it just really has been such a good experience for us.
As you can see from the data in our presentation, this program is worth your time. Our community loves it, the volunteers love it, the staff love it, and most importantly, the dogs love it. So we really encourage you to do, if there's anything we can do to support you in launching your own at your shelter, I highly recommend it. We'd be happy to help. It is just a great program. You get great results from it. We're going to send a link in the chat here in a minute with some resources that might be helpful if you do want to start your own program. But our best advice to you is to just do it. Just start small and grow, and watch all of the magic happen.
I love this. Thank you so much, Ashley and Audrey, for sharing this. I think it's been such valuable information to hear about your journey along the way, like the things that you've changed, growing pains, all the different phases. I'm also a huge fan of jot forms, like use it all the time and love it. It's so easy to use. And the fact that this program just brings more people into the like from the community to help your organization, like all of those people are now invested in your organization, even if they haven't taken a dog out yet. They could become volunteers, they could become fosters, they could become donors, whatever that is. But you're automatically letting the community know that they can come in and help you. So I really appreciate you sharing this incredibly valuable information today. And yes, please share that link. And we'll also include the link to all of those resources in our recap as well that will go out about the webinar. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just to let everybody know, we may go a little bit over the hour today, but this webinar is being recorded. I want to give everybody at Brother Wolf the opportunity to share all of this incredibly valuable information that they're getting ready to share. Hurricane season's currently underway. More shelters and rescues are experiencing either natural disasters or a crisis situation that involves you potentially having to get every animal or a lot of your animals out of the shelter very, very quickly. It's important to have foster programs that are set up for success and that establish that you can potentially do this if you're able to, or if something does happen in your area or to your organization. So I'm really excited today to welcome Leah Craig, Sarah, and Megan from Brother Wolf Animal Rescue in Asheville, North Carolina. And they're going to talk about their foster program overall and their story from Hurricane Helene in 2024. So Leah Craig, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tori. We're just getting our screen sharing set up here so you all can see it. My name is Leah Craig Chumbley. I'm the Executive Director at Brother Wolf Animal Rescue in Asheville, North Carolina. And just getting slides up. Sorry, y'all, we're switching strategy. What we thought would work is not working. Okay. Thank you for your patience. We are excited to talk to you today about disaster response fostering. And I am joined by two of my colleagues today. Sarah is our Director of Programs and Megan, our Senior Director of Foster and Volunteer Coordination. So just to give you a little bit of history about the foster program at Brother Wolf, we were started as an organization back in 2007, and the organization started fully foster-based and only doing dogs. It took them a couple years before they got a brick and mortar shelter, and then a couple years after that, they started helping cats and small animals as well. So we've always been a nonprofit organization. We've never had a county contract, and so that makes us a limited admission shelter. Most of the animals we take in are from local transport. So we work within about a 2-hour radius to help a lot of underfunded, under-resourced, and understaffed shelters who are overburdened with the number of animals who are coming into their care and simply don't have the resources to support those animals. So we're in North Carolina, where about 450 animals a week are euthanized in our shelter system. So that means there's a lot of opportunities to help. And so we work in close connection with these shelter partners and our foster network to help save those animals' lives. And it's critical that our fosters are engaged in this because so many of the animals we take from those shelter partners are because those shelter partners don't have a foster network that can support those animals. So that might be neonates or nursing moms, animals who need around-the-clock care. It might just be animals who are doing really poorly in a shelter environment and need to go to a foster home for adoption, or they might just be over capacity, or they might have high veterinary care needs that they're not able to support financially. So our fosters play a huge role in us being able to expand our capacity to save the greatest number of lives. To give you an idea of our impact numbers with our foster program in a typical year, 2024 was Hurricane Helene here, so not typical at all for us. So these are 23 numbers. That year, we did about 1,500 foster home placements in about 300 foster homes. They supported over 200 neonate animals in those homes. 70% of all the animals we took in 2023 spent some amount of time in a foster home. We had about 1,000 people go through foster orientation with us that year, and we ended with about 1,600 adoptions, 86 of which were foster fails. Our philosophy at Brother Wolf is that it really does take all of us working together to make a better world for animals. And so we want to have as many people helping us as possible. So we want to reduce barriers that say that someone can't help us who wants to. So this is very in line with our adoption policy. We follow an open adoptions policy at Brother Wolf. So again, reducing barriers so that more people can adopt from you who love animals and want them in their homes. And so this is very much similar to, our adoption pool reflects our fostering pool. And so we want to open the gates wide and say, hey, if you love animals and you want to help, you want to be of service, and you want to save lives alongside of us, we don't want to put up barriers that are going to say you can't do that, because we need the help. There's a lot of animals in North Carolina who are looking for a safe place to land. And so we don't care if you work all day, or if you don't have a fenced in your backyard, or what height your fence is, or if you've late on your vaccination appointment for the animals in your own home before, or whatever the case may be. We just want to have a conversation with you and see how you can help. If someone's passionate, we feel really passionate about folding that person into what we're doing. And so to us, this is just being true teamwork across the organization, throughout our community, and even to other shelters. So those shelter partners that we work with, we try to be true partners to them. So we would never call ourselves a no-kill organization simply because we have more resources at our disposal. And, we would never call them a kill organization. So we really want to be collaborative and uplift everyone and work together holistically to help the greatest number of animals. At Brother Wolf, we have 2 paths that someone can become a foster parent with us. So normal times, what you would do is go on our website, you would sign up, you would take a 30-minute online orientation to fostering, you'd fill out forms, and after that, one of our team members would reach out to you and would give you more information and make that first placement. Now, in an emergency, we do it very differently. And it's really critical that if it's an emergency and you're telling people this is an emergency, we need your help, that you really act like it's an emergency. So you don't want someone to show up at your door to help in an emergency and for it to take like an hour for them to get back out the door with an animal. And you don't have that kind of time in an emergency anyways. So we have a procedure that is much shorter. We can have someone show up at the door. We've never met this person before, and within 10 to 15 minutes, they're out the door with the animal. The way we're doing that is that we're only going over the most critical information at that time to make that placement successful for a short amount of time in an emergency. So the things we're making sure to go over are safety information, animal care items for making that animal successful in the home, any medical needs that animal has. And then in North Carolina, we do have state required information that we have to go over with our fosters and have them fill out certain forms before they leave the building. So if that's the case for you, make sure you're going over like state required information. And of course, we want to ensure that they can contact us at all times. At Brother Wolf, we have so many animals in foster that it's really critical that we're available to fosters 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we have staff work an on-call rotating schedule so that we can make that possible. An emergency evacuation is a big leadership decision, and it is a hard one to make. Once you make that call, it is critical that you have captivating information and visuals for others to come help you immediately. But it is an emergency. Usually you're trying to get all the animals out or most of the animals out of your shelter that day. And so you want to know exactly what you're asking for, and you want to ensure that this is understood by your team so that everyone is giving out the same messages. So in our case, we were saying we need these animals to go out for about 5 days. We had about 100 animals in our shelter the day that we were doing that evacuation. Most of the animals we needed to send out to homes were cats and kittens. We did have dogs too, but we really needed cat and kitten placement. And we wanted to let them know that all you have to do is show up. You don't have to have ever been a volunteer or foster with Brother Wolf before. Literally just show up at our shelter and you can help. And of course, being prepared with those procedures ahead of time. You don't want to have leadership make the decision to do an emergency evacuation and then figure out how to move forward with that. You want to ensure that you have everything set up ahead of time to know how you're going to walk through that evacuation into emergency foster homes. The pictures on this screen mean a lot to me because they represent an animal welfare professional who works at a cat rescue in Asheville called Binks's Home for Black Cats. And I answered the door during our emergency evacuation, and she was on the other side of it. And she said, "I'm here from Binks and I'm here to help." And it was just this amazing moment of having like another animal welfare professional show up in the midst of crisis and say, "I'm here to take your most vulnerable babies." And she did. She took like nursing mamas and really, really like sick little kittens, and they were critical to helping those babies at that time. So working in partnership with other organizations and supporting other organizations and cheerleading organizations is so important to our field because we're all working for the same outcomes. Once you're ready to communicate that need for help, we really want to have effective ways to do so. So for us, this means pouring into our networks ahead of time. So on the day we did the emergency evacuation, we had 30,000 people on our email list, 130,000 followers on Facebook, and 45,000 followers on Instagram. So those are communities that we're cultivating ongoing so that when we need to get messaging out and have people see it and react immediately, like those channels are already set up for us. So we wanted to reach our existing fosters, volunteers, donors, and supporters. And we also wanted to reach the broader community because there's people who have never fostered with us before that could be emergency fosters, or people who might not be able to foster but want to help financially in a crisis. And we used our relationships with the media to really help us that day too with messaging. So we leaned on our local news station. We had a TV spot at noon that day to get the word out, and radio started covering it right away. As soon as we announced it, it was running on the radio that Brother Wolf Animal Rescue was evacuating that day. It doesn't matter if you've ever volunteered or fostered with them before, show up at their door. They need cat and kitten placements for 5 days. Everyone can help. And it was incredible, y'all. Like so many people showed up. We were overwhelmed in a great way. That all resulted in 100 animals leaving our shelter in 2 hours. We did not think that that was going to happen. We thought they would leave. We hoped they would all get out into foster homes, but 2 hours was wild. This is our team celebrating once the evacuation was done. 2/3 of the animals who left our facility that day went into emergency foster home placement. So critical to have those procedures in order to get those animals out. That night, we went to bed with 150 animals from Brother Wolf in foster homes. At the start of the day, we had already had 50 in foster. So 150 animals were in foster homes the day Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina, and we all woke up to this. That's our shelter. The like red building in the back. Sorry. So there was 12 feet of water in our shelter, and the emotions are because if we hadn't known how to do that, if we hadn't made the decision to do that emergency foster placement, if we didn't have the way to do that on the spot to get those animals out ahead of this storm, none of those animals would have made it. So it is truly a life and death situation in something like this to be able to evacuate a shelter to get those animals to safety. And when I took this picture, this is the closest I could get to the shelter that next day. And I'm actually more emotional now than I was at that moment because, you know, in animal welfare, you're just like planning for the next thing. We're like, okay, how are we going to do this? But knowing that like our staff succeeded in getting those animals out, like I was like, I'm looking at a building where we just lost a bunch of stuff and that's going to be hard. but our animals are safe. And that was what mattered the very most to us and our whole community. So Megan is now going to chat with you about what happened in the wake of the hurricane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Malik. I've been the foster and volunteer coordinator at Brother Wolf Animal Rescue for the last 3 years. So when we saw the forecasts for Hurricane Helene, we were definitely prepared for some disruption. We thought that it would maybe be a few days out of the shelter, get the animals out, come back, mop up, and then everyone would return on Tuesday. We let the foster homes know that we needed 5 days of their support. And so we sent them out with enough food and supplies and medication to last them that long. By Friday morning, it became pretty clear that that was not going to be the case. Friday morning, I lived right down the road from Brother Wolf. And Friday morning, in the morning, it was already up to the door frames with water. And for reference, that was when I could still leave my apartment, which at the height of the storm was 12 to 15 feet underwater. So it became pretty clear that that was not going to be the case. The shelter was irreparably ruined, along with all of our resources inside of it. And we were existing in a community that had no power, no water, no gas, no cell phones, nothing at all. And so I knew that it was going to be really important that we get in touch with our foster homes. The first call I was able to get out was to my manager, and I had to park on a crowded 4-way stop because it was piled with cars, and it was the only place within miles that had a single bar of service. And so I knew that our priority was to get to these foster families as quickly as possible, let them know what had happened, and let them know what the next step was going to be. So I evacuated to Charlotte. I knew that I needed to get back on the grid. And once I got there, I was able to connect with just a couple staff members that also had been lesser impacted and still had some communication methods. And we got to work contacting all of these foster homes. And what became really miraculous was this emergency foster protocol that we had used that had been extremely accurately maintained throughout the entire process. Because we had used this system, we had the exact location of every single foster pet in our database. We had all of the contact information for those foster homes. We had their addresses. We had all the information that we needed, and it was available on a cloud-based database. So staff members from wherever they were could access this information. And that was really vital because that meant that wherever we were, even though we weren't together, we could work in tandem to get this done and to get in touch with each of these homes to make sure that no one fell through the cracks. As we started to make those calls, we learned what each foster home had done, to weather the storm. We had a foster home who had already evacuated to Kentucky with her foster pet. We had some folks who had needed emergency vet care, and so they had gone out of the county to find that and to pay for it out of pocket. And when we'd even had foster homes pass off their animals to other people because they needed to take care of themselves, get out of the area, or whatever it might have been. And we just made a decision that these people had made the absolute best decision for these animals, considering the circumstances. And we were just there to provide support where we could and fill in the gaps. And so what we came out of that was truly a web of support. We had foster parents driving gas in from other counties and bringing it to other foster homes with our direction. And we had someone evacuate, and so they couldn't take their foster pet. And we found a neighbor down the street who also was a foster parent with us to take that animal. If they needed vet care, we helped with transport, and we made sure that that cost was covered. And so it was really important just to meet everyone where they were at and make sure that we were meeting all of those needs. But of course, since we had only sent these pets out with 5 days of supplies, it was really important that we get the bulk of these foster homes some additional resources. And so for that, we worked with our local county shelter really quickly to create a distribution point. Their shelter had not been hit as hard by the storm. They still had a building full of supplies. And so they were generous enough to collaborate with us and create a checkpoint where we could reach out to foster homes and have them come by to pick up supplies, medical care, or honestly just come get a hug and an update on what we were doing. And that really became a touch point for the community and for our community. And the only way that we were able to do that was because we had all of this emergency onboarding paperwork that had already been uploaded to the system, that was already available, that had been prioritized before the storm hit to get into that database. And so it was a very simple matter to pull reports that had phone lists and email lists so that we could get communications out to these homes about the resources that we had prepared for them in the area. And so I just feel that we were incredibly lucky to have the community that we had and to be so connected with that community. We had key partners, and we also just had a bunch of animal lovers that were willing to really go out of their way and not hesitate to create a support system for us and help us stabilize and provide those really essential supplies and medical and assistance. And so everyone found a way to step in and help out. And the collective response was truly built on trust and data and quick decisions and collaboration. And that's really what carried us through those immediate days following the storm. So I'm going to let Sarah speak now. She's going to talk a little bit about how we let that momentum keep going in the days after the storm.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I am the Director of Programs here at Brother Wolf. I have been here for about 6 years, and I have had the absolute honor of working primarily with our foster network in those 6 years, really thinking about streamlining and making sure that we are able to pivot our network in a way that benefits the animals. So in the days after the storm, we quickly realized how massive the disaster really was. Those first couple of days, we were all kind of siloed because, like Megan said, the cell service was out. We couldn't hear any news. We were having trouble getting into contact with each other. And so, as the days went on, we realized how bad it was here. And, that means the communication issues that we had with the foster parents, but it also meant for animal welfare. We didn't know what it was going to look like for our community. We didn't know what, the community needed, our community of fantastic pet owners. But we also knew that adoption was not on their priority list in this moment, right? They were pulling their lives back together, and we knew that that wasn't on the top of their list. So that being said, we knew that we had to get our animals out of the city. And so what we were able to do was we were able to rely on those networks that we had built over the years with other partner organizations. We were able to reach out to them and have them accept a big amount of our animals, which was fantastic. And so when we were doing that, we realized that our priority was to get the animals out of the disaster zone. We didn't have, sorry. Since our organization practices in open adoptions, open foster mindset, we also have to practice an open mindset when it comes to those partner shelters. So we had to trust them. We trusted their outcome decisions, their adoptive processes, and we also trust that so many folks in those areas who their shelters were going to receive our animals, they want to adopt animals out of disaster zones like that because they feel a really strong connection with their story. So we had to trust all of those things, and it's also important on the back end of that to share those collaborations with your community, show publicly that you are working together and that you support them and they support you. It's really important in the moments of disaster. So in the end, we transported 106 animals out to 10 different organizations. We were thrilled to get those animals into those shelters, and we were also able to celebrate when those shelters reported back and told us that those animals were adopted. We took that message and we sent it also to the foster network that worked so hard to save those lives on September 27th. 20 of the animals that left the shelter that day and went into foster homes ended up being adopted by those same foster homes, which was always a great moment. And a huge success here was that out of all of that happened on that day, those brand new fosters and the emergency onboarding process that we relied so heavily on, we didn't make any data mistakes, and we only lost track of one animal. And funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, we heard from a clinic that had scanned the microchip of this puppy, and Pepperoni had landed in an incredible home in a different state. So Pepperoni is doing just fine, which means that all 150 animals were accounted for after the storm, and that was just incredible. It speaks volumes to the fact that we had such great policies and protocols around our emergency foster situation. And now Even though we are without a shelter, our friends at the ASPCA in Asheville, North Carolina have allowed us to work out of one of their buildings. While we operate out of this temporary space, we are allowed to bring animals in and treat them medically. We can intake them, but they can't stay overnight. So we are a foster-based rescue, and we are operating in this way until we get into our new building. We're currently working on building a new building that will be on higher ground, and we're very excited for that in the future. But for now, we're temporarily foster-based. After all of our animals worked so hard to get or after all of our staff worked so hard to get our animals out of the area, we were able to get our foster network back up and running within 3 months, which was very exciting. So as of right now, since the storm, we have made over 1,000 foster placements. So moving from a brick and mortar shelter to a foster-based operation, essentially overnight, comes with so many challenges. Our adoptions team essentially had to reimagine what it looks like to run adoptions out of a foster-based rescue instead of a brick and mortar. And because of their hard work, we have been able to facilitate about 300 adoptions so far this year. Another thing too, our volunteer program had to reconstruct all of the volunteer roles without a shelter. And so after we were able to reopen our volunteer program, we have been able to fill about 650 volunteer shifts. So that's things like event staffing and supply organization and transporting animals to and from vet offices. So now currently we're operating with about 100 animals in foster homes. At the beginning of the year when we started the foster-based rescue, we only had about 31 animals, and we had big hopes that we would be able to, facilitate and keep about 50 animals in foster homes. But as of about a month and a half ago, we were able to get up to pretty close to the same capacity that we were operating with a shelter, which is incredible. And that's all thanks to the help of our 300 very active foster parents that are making a huge impact in our region. And they are the ones that are driving this life-saving change. It's fantastic. We're also able to help our shelter partners again, which is something that's very important to Brother Wolf. And so we're able to help those municipal shelters. Now, while emergency fostering in this moment was very critical because we were facing a hurricane and a very large natural disaster, hurricanes aren't the only times that you can use these foster emergency onboarding processes, right? Anytime you need to move animals fast, you can use a process like this. So for example, we had a partner shelter reach out a couple of weeks ago, and they had a litter of puppies that they were unable to care for. Brother Wolf is very lucky, we always have been, that our foster network loves to be able to take care of puppies, kittens, neonates, the smalls, and a lot of our municipal shelter partners don't have foster networks like we do. So they often reach out to us for these kinds of things. And so the shelter reached out to us, but unfortunately, all of our foster homes in that moment were full that like to take puppies. And so we were able to utilize our same policy and procedure around emergency fostering. We put out a plea. We asked the community, if you are willing and able to foster with us, we need your help now. And, luckily enough, we were able to get all of those foster puppies into foster homes by the end of that day. And so it's a really good tool to keep whenever you need to move animals fast. And so in the end, it's your foster homes that are going to save the most number of lives. Your foster network is going to be the backbone of your work, and nurturing that relationship is incredibly important. It's important to ensure that your foster parents, once they've been onboarded, understand and know that they are a valuable part of your network. They also need the tools to connect with your team. So make sure that when you onboard them, they know how to reach you and how you will be reaching them. At Brother Wolf, we have an emergency texting line and an emergency phone line that is 24/7. And then we also have, we share all of our contact information. So if they need to get in touch with any of our departments, they know exactly who to talk to. A major way also to communicate with them is to focus on your communication channels. Show them how you're going to get in touch with them. That was really important for us because in the morning of the storm, when we started to evacuate the shelter, we were able to use our normal communication channels with those foster parents. And the majority of the foster parents that were able to show up super early, they just knew that we needed help because they knew how we were going to communicate with them. So they received that email and they showed up within 30 minutes. Make sure too, when you're communicating with your foster parents, that you're sharing as many wins and successes as you possibly can. That's a really good way to make sure that you're continuing to keep them engaged, and it makes them feel like you value their knowing what is going on in your organization. It's very important. And sometimes just seeing like the record of what they're doing, if you're sharing metrics and things like that, that success is enough to have them come back and foster again. And, sometimes it's as simple as sharing individually with a foster parent exactly how they've impacted your organization. So, a couple of weeks ago, we had a social gathering for our foster parents, and one of our foster parents had shared with me that she used to keep a notes of her foster pets on her phone, and something had happened in the storm. She lost all of the data on her phone, and she was crushed that she no longer had that list of her foster pets that she'd had over the years. And so something super simple as that, I was able to pull a report the following day and share that with her, and it was really impactful for her. And it was incredible to see all of the lives that she has saved. And lastly, make sure that you are putting major effort into nurturing that foster community year round. At Brother Wolf, we do it in a couple of different ways. We have a Facebook page that we invite all of our fosters into, and it's just a beautiful place where people share photos of their foster pets, and they also ask questions and they get mentorship. They also can become mentors in that way as well and share some knowledge, which is great. We also hold gratitude events here at Brother Wolf. We typically do about 4 a year. So we'll do a big one in the fall where we do awards and that kind of thing. But we also have just like casual social events, and sometimes we'll do a trivia night or something like that. And it's just a way to give back to your network and really just make sure that you're nurturing it. We do a foster parent of the month where we nominate a foster parent. We send them a cute little card with an Asheville-based business gift card in it, and then we highlight them in our monthly e-newsletter. And it's just another way to lift them up. We've heard so many times from our foster parents of the month, they'll call back and they'll just say that they never expected to be so appreciated just because they're fostering a litter of kittens or something. And it's just another way to give them a little bit of love. And then the last thing, this is probably the most new thing to Brother Wolf, and one of the most impactful, is that we've started doing roundtable meetings. And so we'll invite some of our foster parents who've been with us for a really long time into these meetings, and they're kind of like a mentor level kind of group. And so we hold them about every 3 months, and we'll invite staff to come in and we'll ask them questions, and we just pick their brain a little bit about what they like about fostering with Brother Wolf, what's hard for them, how can we make it easier. And one of the things that came out of one of our recent roundtables was they requested that staff started wearing name tags. They felt really bad when staff would know their names, but they couldn't remember staff's names. So funny enough, on the day of the evacuation, that made all the difference because it meant that brand new fosters and volunteers could know exactly who they were talking to. They felt a little bit more grounded, and it just really made a big difference. So that was incredible. And so finally, fostering is truly an act of love, and fostering saves so many lives. Fosters are critical to operations. Even before the storm, we couldn't save half the lives that we do without the help of our foster network. They're your biggest advocates in the community as well. And the best thing you can do, once again, is to lift them up and show them that they are the most valuable asset to your organization. They are valuable in an emergency, and they're valuable in your day-to-day operations. So make sure that you highlight them as often and as much as possible. So thank you all so much for your time and attention today. It means the world to Brother Wolf to be able to share our story and any sort of information that we have with our animal welfare community. And if you have any questions for us, any of the three of us, you can reach us all at that info@bwar.org. And we would love to connect with you. So thank you all so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was emotional. It was incredible to be able to hear your story, and also just all of the information that you shared about how to set your program up for success, collaboration, inviting the community in, communicating with everybody on what was happening. Like, this was just so valuable. And I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. And if you want some more information about SAC, our website is, you can scan that QR code, and we're at shelteranimalscount.org. Our next webinar that is part of this series is going to be on August 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we will be posting the recording and recap of this session in the upcoming days. We want to thank all of our panelists today for being a part of our presentation with Arizona Humane Society and Brother Wolf. Thank you so much for sharing all of this critically important data to foster programs. And thank you to Hills Pet Nutrition for their support of this series. And we want to thank everybody for attending today and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.